Hey kids! Welcome back to Bible Stories for Kids! Get ready for an amazing journey into a royal palace filled with bravery, courage, danger, and God's awesome plan. Today, we're learning about a young girl named Esther, a brave and beautiful teenager whom God chose to become a queen at just 19 years old. She didn't know it then, but God was preparing her for a very special mission, to save her entire people. This story will teach us courage, faith, and how God can use even the youngest among us to do great things. So sit back, relax, and let's travel to ancient Persia to discover the incredible story of Queen Esther. In a world governed by powerful kings and unchangeable laws, one young woman, an orphan raised in hiding, would rise to a royal throne and risk everything to save her people. This is the powerful and emotional story of Esther, a tale of courage, destiny, and divine purpose. In the vast Persian Empire ruled by King Xerxes, there came a time when the royal palace buzzed with celebration. The king, proud of his wealth and authority, held a grand feast that lasted many days. Nobles, princes, and leaders came from across the empire to eat, drink, and marvel at the king's splendor. On the final day of the feast, when the king's heart was merry with wine, he called for Queen Vashti. He wished to show her beauty before his guests, but Vashti refused. The king's pride was bruised, and in his anger, he sent her away, stripping her of her title. Now the kingdom had no queen. To find a new one, officials suggested gathering the most beautiful young women from every province. They would be brought to the palace, given months of beauty preparation, and presented before the king. From among them, the king would choose a new queen. Among the young women gathered was a girl named Esther. She was beautiful, graceful, gentle, and humble. She lived with her cousin Mordecai, who had cared for her since her parents died. To protect her, he advised her not to reveal that she was Jewish. Esther obeyed him, trusting his wisdom. When she arrived at the palace, Esther quickly gained favor with the attendants. She was kind to everyone and stood out, not because of grand jewels or pride, but because of her quiet strength and good heart. When her turn came to stand before King Xerxes, she needed no extravagant accessories. Her natural beauty, humility, and wisdom captured the king's heart. Immediately, he placed the royal crown on her head and declared her the new queen of Persia. The celebration that followed was grand, but beneath all the joy, life in the kingdom continued its regular rhythm. Mordecai often sat at the king's gate to stay close to Esther and to watch over her. One day, while he sat there, he overheard two guards plotting to assassinate the king. Mordecai acted quickly, telling Esther, who in turn informed the king. The plotters were caught and executed. The event was recorded in the royal chronicles, though Mordecai received no reward at the time. Time passed, and a powerful man named Haman rose to great authority in the empire. The king honored him, demanding that all royal officials bow to him. Everyone obeyed, except Mordecai. When Haman asked why, Mordecai answered boldly, "I am a Jew." He would bow only to God. Haman was furious. Mordecai's refusal felt like an insult he could not ignore. Instead of punishing Mordecai alone, his anger grew into hatred for all the Jewish people. He convinced the king to issue a decree, allowing the destruction of every Jew in the empire on a specific day. To the king, it sounded like the removal of a troublesome group. To Haman, it was revenge. And to the Jews, it was a death sentence. When Mordecai heard the decree, he tore his clothes and sat at the city gate in mourning. Esther, unaware of the decree, grew worried when she heard he was in distress. She sent a messenger to learn the cause. Mordecai sent her the decree and begged her to go before the king and plead for her people. But Esther hesitated. Everyone knew the law. Anyone who approached the king without being summoned could be killed, unless the king extended his golden scepter. Esther had not been called to him for 30 days. The risk was great. Mordecai responded with words that would shape her destiny. "Do not think that because you are in the palace you will escape. If you remain silent, deliverance will arise from somewhere else, but who knows whether you have come to the kingdom for such a time as this." Esther's heart pounded as she read his message. She felt the weight of her calling. Finally, she sent her reply. "Go, gather all the Jews. Fast for me for 3 days. I and my maids will fast with you. Then I will go to the king, and if I perish, I perish." For 3 days Esther prayed and prepared herself. When the fast ended, she dressed in her royal robes, took a deep breath, and walked toward the king's inner court. Her life hung by a thread. As she entered the hall, all eyes turned to her. The king looked up from his throne, staring at her with surprise. Esther felt her knees weaken, but she remained steady. Then the king lifted his golden scepter toward her. Relief washed through her. She approached and touched the tip reverently. "What is it, Queen Esther?" the king asked. "Whatever you request, even up to half the kingdom, will be given to you." Esther swallowed her fear. She knew she needed the right moment to reveal the truth. "If it pleases the king," she said, "let the king and Haman come to a banquet I have prepared." The king agreed eagerly, and Haman felt an enormous swell of pride. To be invited alone with the king and queen, this was proof of his importance. But that pride vanished when he encountered Mordecai at the gate afterward. Once again, Mordecai refused to bow. Rage twisted inside Haman, and he decided Mordecai must die immediately. His wife and friends encouraged him to build a towering gallows to hang Mordecai on. That night, workers hammered and built the structure. Haman went to bed satisfied, planning to ask the king for permission at dawn. But that same night, the king could not sleep. He ordered the royal chronicles to be read aloud. As the scribe read, the king heard the story of Mordecai exposing the assassination plot. "What honor has been given to Mordecai for this?" the king asked. "None," the scribe replied. The king frowned. "This must be corrected." At that moment, Haman arrived, eager to request Mordecai's execution. Before he could speak, the king asked, "What should be done for the man the king delights to honor?" Certain the king meant him, Haman described a grand reward: a royal robe, the king's horse, and a parade through the city. The king smiled. "Do everything you have said for Mordecai the Jew." Haman felt the ground tilt beneath him, but he had no choice. He dressed Mordecai in royal garments, led him through the streets, and proclaimed honor upon him. People watched in amazement, some hiding smiles as Haman's humiliation unfolded. Afterward, Mordecai returned quietly to his post. Haman, however, rushed home in misery. His advisors warned him that Mordecai's rise meant his own downfall was near. That evening, the king and Haman attended Esther's second banquet. The atmosphere was warm, the food rich, but Esther's heart beat with urgency. When the meal ended, the king asked again, "What is your request?" Esther rose, her voice trembling but firm. "My king, spare my life, and spare my people, for we have been sold to be destroyed, killed, and annihilated." The king's face hardened. Who would dare do such a thing? Esther pointed at Haman. "The adversary and enemy. Is this wicked man?" Haman's blood drained from his face. The king stormed out in fury. Haman threw himself at Esther's couch, begging for mercy. But as he fell forward, the king returned and saw him leaning over the queen. "Will he even assault the queen in my own house?" That moment sealed Haman's fate. Guards seized him. A servant mentioned the gallows Haman had built for Mordecai. The king ordered, "Hang him on it." Haman was executed on the very structure he intended for Mordecai. But the danger was not over. The decree against the Jews still stood, and Persian law could not be reversed. Esther once again fell at the king's feet in tears, pleading for her people's lives. The king listened and commanded that a new decree be written, allowing the Jews to defend themselves. Mordecai, now promoted and honored, wrote the decree swiftly. Messengers spread the news across the empire. On the appointed day, the Jews defended themselves and triumphed over their enemies. What had once been a day of expected destruction became a day of victory and joy. The people celebrated with feasts, gifts, and thanksgiving. That celebration became known as Purim, a festival still honored today. Esther remained a beloved queen, remembered for her bravery and obedience. She had risked her crown, her comfort, and her life for her people. A young orphan had become the instrument of salvation for an entire nation. Her story stands as a testament that courage often comes in quiet steps. Destiny can rise from humble places, and sometimes God positions us exactly where we need to be for such a time as this.